Hi, welcome to West Coast Supercars and Classics. I'm Mark. Today I want to do an owner's perspective on the 911 GT3. I know a lot of you have probably watched a lot of the YouTube videos from various journalists who've driven these things. Most people, though, have not driven these cars or owned them. I realize that because they're relatively rare. They're somewhat specialized and expensive. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of a perspective of what it's like to own one of these cars, take it to the track, and so on. This particular car is a 2015, so it's a 991.1 internal designation, right? As opposed to a 991.2, which would be the 4-liter engine with a little bit more horsepower and other things like that. But basically, as far as GT3 series are concerned, this is the third generation of the GT3. The first one came out 1999 for the 996 model, the first GT3 model. And of course, that was using the 962 derived Mezger engine, so-called Mezger engine. Sorry for all these numbers. Basically, they're all 911 series, but they each have like a special model number. So the first water-cooled versions were the 996 versions, and there were two different variations of those because they always do a refresh or an update. And then we went to the next models, which came out in what, 05, 06. That would be the 997 models. That went through three different variations because you had a GT3 version first, a GT3 RS version, and then you had a GT3 RS 4.0, 4-liter version, which is fairly rare. I think that came out in 2011 for the RS 4.0. Any case, this is the third generation, so this is a 991.1, as I mentioned before. The 3.8 liter engine in this car is derived from the Carrera model, which also is from the same series, the 991.1. But the engine internals are quite different. You've got titanium connecting rods, you've got different crankshaft, different valve train, stuff like that. With this improved drivetrain, this 3.8 liter engine for the first time could rev up to 9,000 RPM, which is phenomenal for a fully warranted road-going car. Although I do have an RX-8, Mazda RX-8 over here, which does rev up to 9,000 RPM, but it's not a reciprocating engine, it's a rotary engine. So it's cheating, I guess you could say. But in any case, so this was a 9,000 RPM rev limit, and it produces its peak horsepower at 475 horsepower at around 8,200 RPM. And the peak torque is somewhere around 325 foot-pounds. So it's, you know, really a high horsepower, high output engine, but you're looking at a normally aspirated engine. That's the main thing that makes these cars great track cars and sports cars, primarily a sports car still. Now, when this one came out, it was only available with the PDK 7-speed transmission, a specially developed one for this car as well, by the way. Now, the PDK, for those of you who are not familiar, is a manual, hydraulically actuated double clutch transmission. And if you really want to know the name, it's Porsche Doppelkupplung, which just means double clutch, right? In German. Some interesting controversy among some people about the PDK transmission or double clutch transmissions in general versus manual transmissions. I don't really want to get into that too far, just to say that I've had this car on the track and even around town and so on and so forth, and it's an amazing transmission, and there is no way you could find a fault with it. You just can't. It's lightning fast. I think the shifts are under 100 milliseconds, far faster than what you could do by hand, and you never miss a shift. Even if you're, especially if you're downshifting into a high-speed corner, for example, or whatever corner it is, and you select a gear, you're focusing on what's going on the track. You're not necessarily looking at your RPMs on your tachometer. So with this transmission, you can select a lower gear, but it won't let you over rev the engine and select the wrong gear, which is actually kind of a smart thing because it's not unheard of and uncommon to make a mistake like that on the track when you're in the heat of the moment. There's a lot of distractions out there. And you know, over-revving an engine is not good for it. The weight of these cars, they're a little bit heavier than the 997 model. They are somewhere between 3,100 and 3,200 pounds. They have pretty massive rubber on them. I mean, you can see it's a pretty wide car. Another thing which makes these cars stand out, of course, are the center lock rims on these cars, the center lock wheels. These are 20-inch rims, and on the front it's got a 245, and at the rear it's got a 305. Now, if you go to the RS version of this, you're going to get even bigger rubber, more downforce, bigger wing, all sorts of stuff like that. Let's talk about some of the characteristics that make this a really high-performance track car. First of all, low center of gravity, fairly low weight. It's got all the electronic stability control, the torque vectoring, fully lockable rear differential. This model also, the GT3 model, has four-wheel steering on it. So in that case, at low speeds, it steers in the opposite direction of your front wheels. That gives you effectively a shorter turning radius. And at higher speeds, it goes in the same direction as your front wheels, which increases your stability. Because what you want to be able to effectively use the performance of the car, effectively use the power of the car. And that is something that Porsche has done, in my opinion, brilliantly with this car. This is a very drivable car. I still think of it as a really beefed up, highly developed sports car. I don't consider it to be a hypercar, supercar, or anything like that, although it has very high performance, mainly because it doesn't have any weird bad habits and weird design that's really inconvenient and stupid or something like that. It doesn't produce insane amounts of power. It doesn't cost an insane amount of money. The interior is very practical. The controls are very usable. If you have had other Porsches, this is very familiar to you. It's easy to use. So when I've had it on the track, it talks to you beautifully. It is very easy to control, to modulate everything with either the throttle or the steering. Brakes, of course, are superb. Completely fade-free track car that can be street legal and driven on the street anytime you want. That's what this car is really good at. Porsche is in a unique position because they can offer all of that 70 plus years of racing history, countless wins at all the racetracks around the world, so much design know-how, right, and racing know-how. And they can offer that to you in a really high quality, reasonably affordable package. Yes, it does have a lot of sophistication, but really it's driver focused. So when you're in the car driving, it just feels like a really great sports car. Gets down the road, does what you want it to do, sounds great. That's really it. Well, I might have some more things to say technically about it, but I think for now we should take it for a drive. We'll look at the interior a little bit. It's November 11th today, so we're going to go out for a quick Remembrance Day cruise in honor of our veterans, and I will continue with this later this afternoon. All right, we've got baffles open, PDK Sport, shocks are in sport mode. There we go. We got our lovely camera car up ahead of us, which is our Panamera S E-Hybrid. And interesting thing about both these cars is they're going to be leaving us sooner than later, because we are going to be changing cars altogether. Exciting new chapter here. So as I was telling you earlier about the GT3, now that we're sitting in the interior of the car, this is another great aspect of the car. Visibility is very good out the front. Out the rear window, it's not too bad. I've got a big shelf at the back where the rear spoiler is. So it's a little bit split up, but that's the way it is when you got these big wings on the back. First thing you're going to notice about this car is that it's very sporty. You feel everything on the road. So every road surface, for better or for worse, you're going to feel it. So if it's a lousy road, you're going to feel that. If it's a good road, you're going to enjoy that. This doesn't pull any punches. It's not rough. It just tells you what's going on with the road surfaces. Controls are very, very positive. The steering is perfectly weighted and very easy to use. One of the things I noticed about this car when I first got it, actually when I was first driving it, was that the front end is just phenomenal on it. It's probably got the best front end of any car I've driven so far. It's actually kind of fun chasing that car around. It's cool. First time, eh? I got my daughter in the car with me right now. She likes to drive in this car. Oh no, let's hit a little bit of a corner here. Now fourth gear, third gear. Oh, it's just phenomenal. You can string your corners together like nothing in this car. It's just like butter. And you find yourself just getting into the rhythm on the track and the street. And you notice how fast you're going. Just naturally, it's a very fast car, very quick car. If I do a little quick acceleration, I'm in second gear here. I'm at 22,000 RPM. And I can bang it up just like that. So I talked a little bit about the chassis, how this car gets down the road. The gearbox, the PDK, of course, is ultra quick. You can hear a shift here. Just instantaneous. So if you want to just tool around at sport car speeds, this car is happy to do that all day long. It doesn't lug, the engine does not lug at low RPMs. It's got plenty of torque. You never hear anything like that coming out of it. It's just a very tight running car. The engine has obviously oil coolers and transmission coolers and all the rest of it. Also has a dry sump system, as you probably know. Woo! We got a little slippage at the rear there. I've got the traction control. All the nannies are on right now. But yeah, you can get a little bit of wheel spin if you're not careful when it's a little bit damp. As much as this car is a phenomenally well put together car, you know, for a track car, it's very civilized. Like, the interior is really nice. You can tell all of the materials are beautiful, hand-stitched leather. You've got your carbon fiber, is it called Race Tex? I think they call it. That's their version of Alcantara. Also, the headliner here is all done in Race Tex as well.
Dashboard's leather. There's nothing plasticky or anything about this car whatsoever. So it's actually really nice. It's got the navigation system, you got your Bluetooth, all that good stuff that you want. So you got your connectivity. It's got a decent Bose stereo. Now we got some windy roads here, some mountain roads. It's only 5.5 degrees and we got Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. So this is not the right environment for really going crazy. I'm gonna breathe down the tailpipe there a little bit. But you can hear about 4,000 RPM, that motor really starts to get nice and throaty. Nice sound. You can't complain about the sound of this car. Great sounding car. So you get your foot into it and then it immediately goes. Brakes are very easy to modulate. Just a light touch with your fingertips on the steering. I do like to drive fast, but I am not like a tire squealy kind of person. Let's get some faster corners going here. Again, throttle response. It feels very planted. You never feel like the rear end is lively or loose. You know, once in a while, you'll feel the rear end want to step out a little bit if you're doing things driving a certain way, but generally I don't find that. I find it pretty balanced, and in the high-speed stuff, like at VIMC, when you're doing corners 1, 2 to 3, if it does start to drift, it usually just drifts very evenly, because of course you're not, so it should just drift out a little bit if it does happen, but it's very balanced. Throttle a bit. Lots of acceleration. There's no point having a ton of power if you can't put it down properly or if the rest of the car isn't keeping up with it. That is not safe. That's one thing I really like about the normally aspirated engines. They don't make crazy amounts of torque right through their power bands. So they kind of wind up a little bit, and there's a kind of an elasticity to the power that's kind of nice. Gives you a bit of a safety margin in terms of how it puts the power down, especially with so much rubber at your disposal here. You shouldn't have traction problems in this configuration of the modern rear engine 4-wheel steering 911 and the GT3 series. You just shouldn't have those problems. So obviously I really love this car, but we are going to get rid of it. And I had thought about getting a brand new GT3, the 992 GT3, thought seriously about it. But we do a lot of family cruises with our daughter, and you know, if you want to go out for a country drive in a fun car, this could be one that you would use, but of course I can't take 3 people. And the fact that I like to go to the track, but we don't have a lot of tracks around here, we just have one really good track, means I don't have a lot of variety for places to go. So it's really a toy to enjoy and exploit thoroughly on the track, and to drive on the street when you can and enjoy that as well. And that brings me to my next observation. After having driven and owned a few very fast cars, This car is a little bit too fast for the street, for public roads. For me, it's a little bit too fast. And what I mean by that is to really exploit this car to its potential, you need to drive it on a track. It's just too fast for public roads. You're going too fast. I can't demonstrate that to you because that would get me in trouble, but just trust me when I say that it builds so much speed and it's so capable of going very, very fast. Let's just listen. Let's see what happens here. I'll get into the throttle a little bit here. That's fun. If you really love cars and you really love great sports cars and you ever are in a position to own one of these cars, don't hesitate. It's a fantastic car. It's one of the best things you'll ever drive. Guaranteed. And I love the PDK, and I love keeping my hands on the steering wheel and being able to shift while I got my hands on the steering wheel. Better system, it's more efficient, faster. I definitely drive better with it.
I hope this video has given you some insight into the ownership of the 991 3.8 liter GT3. I'll admit right away that it's a rare privilege to be able to own and drive cars like this, so I consider myself very fortunate. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and for sure I'll be making more videos in the next little while. Talk soon.